Good afternoon, Senators, Mr. Chair, and members. I want to begin by saying that I am accepting the amendments that were outlined by the committee's analysis, and I want to thank the Chair, and staff, and committee staff for helping us strengthen this bill. I am pleased to present SB 16 that would empower local agencies to build partnerships with the California Civil Rights Department to enforce actions under the Fair Employment and Housing Act, otherwise known as FEHA. California's workers have a fundamental right to work in discrimination-free work sites and environments. And there are scores of industry, millions of workers and employers, and far too many schemes. And when left unchecked, discrimination in the workplace denies workers their basic right to human dignity. And it robs our community of vital resources when workers are not able to earn a living to take care of themselves and their families. In many vulnerable communities, too often discrimination can be a job killer. A recent study by UCLA reported that women surveyed cited discrimination as a leading cause of absenteeism due to stress-related illness at work and often led to resignation, and we don't need women leaving the workplace. FEHA is the state statute that protects workers from discrimination based on race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, gender expression, among other civil rights protections. Enforced by the California Civil Rights Department, FEHA is the state's first line of defense for California's workers to report claims of workplace and housing discrimination. But the pervasiveness of discrimination throughout the state and the increasing incidence of late have made it very difficult and near impossible for a single state agency to bear the sole responsibility of enforcement, particularly when the agency is understaffed and overburdened as it has been for years. As one example, I had the opportunity to meet with a worker, Castro Landers, who worked in the rail yards, and he shared an incident about his job. His job was to move the train cars out of the switching yard and into the main yard. It's a very dangerous job. You work with folks who uncouple and couple the rail cars, and often there are moments where folks are crushed in that process. One day as he was walking over to his car, he walked into the cabin of the car and he found a black doll hanging by its neck from his switching pole. And he didn't know how it got there. And in his mind, he was thinking about all of the workers who are in that yard with him, who were really responsible for his safety. And he immediately realized how unsafe he was in his work environment. And when he reported this to his supervisors, they did nothing. And when he submitted a complaint to the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, the incident move forward, but it took months before he ever got a response. And in the end, the response never came, and he didn't have a solution from our state agency. And to me, that means that there are thousands of Californians, workers who are not receiving the protections that they so desperately seek and need. And as a result, particularly for low-wage workers, who often cannot afford attorneys, and what they earn is very difficult to attract an attorney to take their cases. Many of them are left without protections. Our workers deserve better. Our families deserve better. And in this effort, many local jurisdictions, cities, and counties have started to create their own civil rights departments. That is the case in Los Angeles, in the city and county of San Francisco, in San Diego, to name some of those agencies. And while these agencies are working effectively to end discrimination in their jurisdiction, state law prohibits them from enforcing actions for civil rights violations in employment and housing. Today, we have a tremendous opportunity to allow local governments to enforce civil rights protections while enabling our state civil rights department to develop the partnerships needed to ensure robust and vigorous enforcement. These partnerships can look different across the state, to fit those local needs. But the goal here is to put more enforcement boots on the ground, strengthening overall protections. SB 16 seizes on this opportunity by removing preemption from provisions within FEHA that prevent local agencies from enforcing civil rights violations and building partnerships, with these local jurisdictions so that our strengthened protections happen overall. With that, I'd like now to take this opportunity to introduce Elda Solomon, Policy Manager with the Southern California Black Worker Hub for Regional Organizing, who will testify in support of SB 16. Just say she braved torrential rains driving here to be with you this afternoon.
It's true. I'm dry now.
All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members and Mr. Chair. My name is Elda Solomon. I am the Policy Manager of the Southern California Black Worker Hub for Regional Organizing. It is my pleasure to speak on behalf of the Southern California Black Worker Hub and enthusiastic sponsorship of SB 16. The mission of our organization is to unify Black worker voices and consolidate Black worker power in the Southern California region with our regional Black worker centers in Los Angeles, Inland Empire, and San Diego. Often we hear, a lot of worker stories. We collect worker stories and try to inform our policy and campaign work, by the things that workers are experiencing on the ground. What we've learned is that it's all too common, the kinds of discrimination that Black workers face, from racial to gender to disability discrimination, that it runs the gamut. And when speaking with workers, we've learned that workplace discrimination is just disturbingly common. In fact, in the largest study done of Black workers in California, we think it's the largest Black study done of all workers in the nation. We surveyed 2,000 Black workers at the height of the pandemic, and discrimination was one of 3 major experiences that Black workers commonly faced during this time. And when asked to make recommendations on what all levels of government should do to provide support for Black workers, a major recommendation included targeted workforce rights and development programming. And because Black workers experience discrimination at high rates, it continues to be a major driver of unemployment, underemployment, and trauma. And Black workers are in need of resources to fight against discrimination, unsafe workplaces, All workers face discrimination and are deserving of fair and safe work. Black workers and other marginalized workers like LGBTQ, undocumented workers, workers of religious minorities, immigrant workers, elderly workers, differently abled workers, all Californians are at the risk of facing workplace discrimination, and we believe that they need to have the opportunity to assert their rights at every level of the government. The need for SB 16 is complex and urgent. Across the state, research has shown that California has seen about a 34% increase in workplace discrimination complaints since the 1980s, but we do not see a proportionate increase in the state's capacity to adequately address these concerns and complaints. The addition of local workforce enforcement could give more workers a fighting chance against discrimination in their own communities by being able to file complaints with local agencies and departments. The need for strong enforcement in addressing workplace.
Thank you. If you could wrap it up.
Okay. The need for stronger enforcement really comes down to not only more enforcement, but who is actually doing enforcement. And the local governments and agencies, we understand, will have better relationships with the local workers and employers and with communities. And so with that, we respectfully request your aye vote.
Thank you. All right. Others in support?
Mariko Yoshihara here, expressing support on behalf of the Korean Immigrant Worker Alliance, Kiwa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Flox in support, California Labor Federation.
Thank you.
Sandra Barrero on behalf of SEIU California in support.
Thank you.
Greetings, members. My name is Ayala Gazal. I am a diaspora from Ethiopia and a California resident. I've lived in SoCal, Central California, and currently reside in Oakland, California. I've experienced working as a corporate employee, gig worker, and an educator over the 2 decades of professional experience in a number of degrees ranging from computer science, international management, and artistic entrepreneurship. I share my acumen not to bolster myself, but to highlight the degree of which workplace discrimination does not discriminate against the discriminated, and why SB 16 is so vital for millions of workers like me. I'm here today to provide a statement and testimony on my experiences of discrimination in the labor force. Especially as an employee with an aerospace corporation located in Anaheim, California, although I can spend the entire day sharing experiences of discrimination with an entire spectrum of the labor force, I'll speak only on one especially egregious experience. After the financial collapse of 2008, I was fresh out of college with a business degree and did not even allow me to acquire a job in a fast food chain. I decided to enroll back into school and obtain a specialized degree in computer science. It was during that time I was hired in 2010 with an aerospace company in Anaheim, California, working as a system analyst in the technology sector. This was a large manufacturing aluminum extrusion company with a power plant and a number of offices. I was the only black office employee in the whole plant, while over 90% of the floor workers on the power plant were represented by the black and brown laborers. On the same floor, there were countless safety, labor, legal violations, and many discrimination lawsuits as a result. My personal and direct experience with discrimination occurred around my second and third year with the company as I began taking on additional responsibilities and began supporting the company on a global scale. As a father with a growing family and 2 kids, I had a growing need to increase my income. Although a minuscule raises were provided annually, they did not even match the rate of inflation, so I was essentially facing a pay cut year after year. After completing my computer science degree in 2 years with the corporation, I approached my direct manager to gain more responsibilities and to get additional training was required so it could be paid at a fair industry standards. She happily advocated on my behalf to the corporate team, and after what seemed like a back and forth for months, allowed me to get additional training in the database management field, and promised me the role of database administrator upon my completion of training and certification process. I proceeded on my training as a role as a database administrator. In 6 months, I completed my necessary training with glowing marks and 5 new furbished professional certification. At that point in 2014, since joining...
Sir, this was Me Too testimony. Because there was only one witness in support, I let you go a little over 2 minutes. But go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay, I get to the last page. So without the adequate enforcement of workers like me who cannot afford the time resources it takes to take delinquent employers to court, will go without equal and sufficient protections. I urge you to vote yes on SB 16 so that workers across the state in California have fighting chance against
All right.
ill intent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Those in opposition. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Ron Kingston, representing the Orange County Apartment Association, East Bay Rental Housing Association, and Affordable Housing Management Association in the state of California. We are a tweener, if you will. We're very pleased with the amendments that Mr. Griffiths and the committee have suggested. They're only because we're looking at uniformity of interpretation and application of our discrimination laws. That's really, really important, whether it's done at the state level or the local level. There's one thing we would like to ask the author as the bill moves forward, and that is to assure that the Civil Rights Department, as it is now known, as of last July, does not suffer an adverse financial setback because they are trying to enforce the laws, and so are the local governments trying to enforce the laws. We want to make sure that whoever it is, there's one entity, one government that is processing the discrimination complaint. And we look forward to working with the author to make sure that just one little tweak is done successfully. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kingston. Others in opposition? Seeing no one else approaching the microphone. All right. Let's turn to the phone lines. Moderator, if you would queue up those who are in support and in opposition to SB 16, we'd be grateful.
To provide public comment in support or opposition to SB 16, please press 1, then 0 at this time. And so far we have 5 people queued up. First, we will hear from line 30.
Kramer on behalf of Disability Rights California in support of SB 16. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 43. Line 43, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Burks. I'm a California resident, constituent of SB 28, and I support SB 16.
Thank you.
Line 55. Line 55, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lori Foray, and I'm calling in support of SB 16.
Thank you.
Line 48.
This is Gia Riley in support of SB 16.
Thank you.
Line 54.
Good afternoon. Julius Young, a resident of Inglewood, California. I'm in support of SB 16.
Thank you.
Line 58.
Good afternoon. My name is Tristan Shaw. I am an Inglewood resident. I am in strong support of SB 16.
Line 42.
Yes, my name is Roy Cheney. I am in support of SB 16. I am a resident of San Pedro.
Thank you.
Line 53.
Hello, Trina Traylor, Los Angeles Black Worker Center. I am in support of SB 16.
Thank you.
Line 57.
Hi, my name is Alexandria Davis, a resident of Los Angeles, California, and I'm in support of SB 16.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, there are no further comments at this time.
All right, let's bring it back to committee.
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, Senator Laird.
Thank you very much. I applaud the author for bringing this bill forward, and in a moment we'll be happy to move it. And I appreciate the fact that you took the amendments and were working with the staff. And when I was in the Assembly and started 20 years ago, there were 144 non-discrimination code sections. Only 2 mentioned sexual orientation. Many did not mention gender. Some said handicapped instead of people with disability. Some said ethnic heritage rather than race. Many did not have marital status. And I did a series of bills that indexed the Fair Employment and Housing Act categories to that so that our code was constant. And also did a bill that formally added categories to the Unruh Civil Rights Act because it was a court case 40 years ago that said that categories could be incorporated by reference that weren't specifically named. That's how sexual orientation originally came, and marital status originally came in the Unruh Civil Rights Act. And notwithstanding that court suit standing, I did a bill that was successfully signed that added categories. And the thing was, is we also tried to get money additionally put in for enforcement, and the Schwarzenegger administration would not do it. So when Mr. Kingston testified that he thinks that money will not be cut from the state because of this bill, I, for one, am still in favor of adding and feel like that is something that we have to do to make sure that whether this bill eventually is signed into law or not, we have adequate enforcement at the state level. So overall, I applaud you for bringing the bill forward. I would move the bill.
Senator Laird moves the bill. Senator DeRosso?
Yeah. Thank you to the author as well. Just a question on your agreement to work on some amendment language. Do you feel like that's going to address some of the concerns that have been raised by the committee?
I do.
Do you feel you're well on your way to addressing those
I
concerns?
do, and I thank you for the question. I thank you for your comments as well, Senator Laird, and for your work in this space. Civil rights is a generational struggle and fight. And to your point, Senator DeRosso, I think we're in conversations with the governor's office. We're in close conversations with the Civil Rights Department. This is about strengthening our enforcement apparatus in the state, expanding our capacity, and bringing partnerships at the local level to support. So this is a multiplier bill. How can we multiply our capacity and strength to do this work? And I've also put some money where my mouth is, right? I'm fighting for resources in the budget to make sure that we have the proper partnerships because there's a lot of protected classes and folks will come to this bill and its protections through many channels. And we want to make sure that there are resources for our state agency to build the kinds of partnerships that we need to protect Californians. So yes, I do believe we are on the right track to make this bill successful and to get a signature from the governor's office.
All righty. Yes, Senator Yellow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know what the amendments are, but I do, as long as there's going to be enablement of enforcement at the local level, as well as it existing at the state level, I see a great risk of inconsistent enforcement. The state perhaps not agreeing with a particular issue or conclusion of the locals or vice versa. I think that's potentially the risk of unintended consequences. And to Senator Laird's point, in the last 5 budget years, you and I were not here, but state spending has doubled, and yet our colleagues and former members, as well as the administration, evidently didn't see the priority to fund this department in a way that they could provide adequate enforcement. And the only editorial behind that is that would appear to be a missed opportunity. And it kind of puzzles me. If you have a department with such important enforcement powers in such an important area, you would think that would be a priority. And so now we're faced with the unintended risk of inconsistent enforcement from local and state perspectives on individual cases. That's my concern.
Well, I guess my response to that is that we are working closely with the department to make sure that we on the front end have a process for addressing the question about inconsistencies. I think the opportunity here implicit in partnership is the opportunity to communicate, to have a channel to address those issues. I think if we don't move forward with this, as Senator Laird said, there are a lot of protected classes. The law is complex, and we need to make sure that there is a process by which our state and local entities can collaborate. So partnership means collaboration and communication to address those issues, and that's what we're working with the department on to make sure that there's a process that will help us accomplish that.
Alrighty, thank you. Other comments, questions? Seeing none, Senator Laird moved the bill. Madam Secretary, if you would call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Smallwood Cuevas, you care to close?
Thank you, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
This is SB 16. The motion is do pass as amended. Umberg?
Aye.
Umberg, aye. Wilk?
Aye.
Wilk, aye. Allen? Ashby? Aye. Ashby, aye. Caballero? Durazo? Aye. Durazo, aye. Laird? Aye. Laird, aye. Min? Aye. Min, aye. Nilo? No. Nilo, no. Stern? Wiener? You have 6-1.
6-1, we'll put the bill on call. Thank you, Senator Smallwood Cuevas.